this edition of Sin's Chat Corner. I am super excited to be hosting the two people I have here today. One of the things that I have long thought about, especially since my daughter became engaged, was the fact that the relationships, by and large over time, between mother-in-law, father-in-law, and the children has been very strained. In fact, I did some research. You'd be surprised to know that 80% of married women claim that their mother-in-laws are the biggest point of contention for them, even more so than money or sex. 1/3 of couples have moderate to severe conflict with their in-laws, and 16% more women than men actually dread hanging out with their in-laws. And finally, 3/4 of the internet searches that I did talking about in-laws in general are all negative with bad stigma surrounded by them. So I thought it would be interesting for us to do a show today that talks about healthy relationships, expectations with mother-in-law and father-in-law, and more importantly for future, how we can build a healthy community between our families and our children. So tune in. Okay, question number one's the most important, and we'll start with Janet. Janet, tell us a bit about yourself and your family.
My name is Janet. I have 4 boys.
Okay.
2 I did not birth, 2 I birthed.
Okay.
They have given me several grandchildren from the ages of 15 to 4.
Okay.
And my family is my life.
And occupation? What do you do for a living?
I do customer service. I'm a customer service representative for a trucking company.
Okay. And your husband and yourself have been married how long?
21 years.
Okay. And for context purposes, your 2 boys, how old are they?
32 and 29.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, Sherry, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, yes. My name is Sherry, and I have 3 amazing children. I was married for 39 years, lost my husband 5 years ago almost, and they have given me 5 amazing grandchildren. And they are from, 9 to 4.
Okay.
And my life is so much better because of them.
And you're retired, or do
I
you
am
work?
retired.
Okay,
I worked
gotcha.
in county government for 33 years.
Okay.
So I retired so I can take care of my family.
All right. If I were to ask both of you, could you please tell me why it was important for you to do this segment? What do you want to contribute to this conversation about in-laws?
Based on your statistics that have shocked me, because I myself always had a good relationship with both sets of my in-laws,
Sure.
and that there are good relationships out there. I feel I have a very good relationship with my daughter-in-law and also my daughter-in-law to be.
Okay.
And I think it's important that people know the flip side, that there are good relationships out there.
Absolutely. Sherry, your thoughts?
Wow. I can say that I have 2 great son-in-laws, and I have a wonderful daughter-in-law. And I have a good relationship with them. We have fun. We're down to earth. We treat each other with respect,
Okay.
and we enjoy our time together. My in-laws, I took care of them, and I had no regret. I enjoyed that, and I felt that was my purpose. So I really never had a problem with them.
Okay. That explains a bit of the current relationship. Let's step back a little bit when you guys were first meeting your son-in-law or daughter-in-law. What was that relationship like compared to now? Meaning in the beginning, I know sometimes when you meet one another, it's a rocky road. There's a lot of expectation, impressing going on, things like that. How were things in the beginning?
For me, meeting Sherry and Jim, her husband, because her daughter is my daughter-in-law,
Yes.
so we have that out there now. It wasn't anything. I was a little nervous meeting them just because I hadn't met them before.
Sure.
But I had like kind of vetted my daughter-in-law. How's your parents? What do they do for work? What do they do for fun? And we've just gotten to know each other and be really good friends.
Oh, nice. Okay. And as for you?
Almost the same kind of path.
Okay.
However, I feel like we kind of even went further. We found out that we had more in common with the dad I went to school with, and we just found so many more common things.
Okay.
But as we met, we just got along, and we have so much fun together.
Aw,
we
we
do.
do.
We have, bags are our thing, and we are a team. So we really enjoy our time together,
Sure.
and that makes me very happy.
So I think it's only fair that I tell the audience, because most of you I know follow me on a regular basis. So if you do, you already know my relationships to some degree with my future son-in-law. Brian is engaged to my daughter Samantha. Brian happens to be Janet's son, as a matter of fact. And I can tell you firsthand, my experience is not exactly the same experience that Janet and Sherry have had. As a future mother-in-law, I can tell you that I threw my future son-in-law out of my house when I first met him. We had some friction easily for probably the first year or so, and I think a lot of that had to do with kind of growing pains, getting to know one another, understanding each other's limits, seeing the effect that he had on my child and some of the experiences, positive and negative, and watching him kind of transfer his life from one stage to another, because the way he is right now and the place he's at right now is far healthier, I think, and definitely much more expanded out, and he is taking chances and being responsible and doing all the wonderful things that he needs to do for himself, not just for my daughter, but for himself. So I can attest that it is possible to start out not necessarily in a great place and end up having a really stronger bond, so to speak. So I want to ask you ladies about this. It would appear that the top 5 complaints about mother-in-laws are the following. We have too much advice on parenting, helping out all the time without asking, impossible to please, we're never wrong, and a lack of having any kind of boundaries. So if I were to go to your respective daughter-in-law, son-in-law, what do you think they'd say to that? And where do you stand on that sort of thing? Are you able to keep limits, so to speak, or boundaries?
I personally probably cross that limit with giving advice, but I've warned them and told them, that's just me. I give advice even when not asked for.
Sure.
And I tell them how I've done it in the past. It's my personality on how I relate to people. But I've told them, you can use it or lose it. I feel the need to say it.
Okay.
And they don't have to listen to me. They're gonna find their own way of parenting.
Sure.
And I respect that.
Okay.
If one of the kids is in trouble or hurt or whatever, of course if they're hurt, I'm running to them.
Of course.
Also.
Yes.
But in instances, one time my grandson was being disciplined and he was really upset. And before I went out and comforted him,
Yeah.
I asked if I could.
Okay.
Because I didn't want to cross that line.
Okay.
So I totally respect their parenting styles and but I'm always giving my advice.
Okay. And Sherry?
Well, I have to say, I overstep my boundaries a lot. My daughter Ashley's my baby.
Sure.
And Jay and I have a very unique relationship.
Okay.
We do. We respect each other, and we can kid and we can cut down. I tell him exactly what I think.
Okay.
He knows exactly where I stand. And I do step in, and I'm working on that. That's a really work in progress.
Yeah.
Because I'm there all the time. Like, I almost feel like a permanent feature there.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm there a lot, and I feel like my grandkids, and I feel like, because I know everything. You know that, right?
Yes.
We all know everything.
Of course.
We've been there.
Yes.
And I just don't want them to make the mistakes that maybe I did.
Yes.
But I realize now that they need to make those. So that's a really hard thing to step back in.
Oh God, yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and I'll tell him, you need to do this or that, and he just takes it with a grain of salt and then tells me, "Are you leaving yet?"
But we love Jay, right?
Oh, we love
but
him.
We love Jay.
We do.
Yes, there
so,
we go.
yeah, we have a very, I think, a very good relationship.
Nice. Now, on the flip side, of course, besides my daughter getting married, I have an older son who actually has a wife, and they are married. And I also am guilty of the whole, they just had their first child 2 years ago, so it's only natural, because I was watching him for 6 or 7 months, to intercede and say, hey, try this medication, or try this, or do this, and that sort of good stuff. I literally show up at every waking second whenever they let me to be a part of his life. I'm always interjecting advice all the time. But I, too, am learning that sometimes you can't save them all the time, because they get to a certain age where you're like, okay, like it or not, that baby's going to cry all night, and you're just going to have to sit there and bite your tongue when they say the baby won't stop crying, and you just have to be like, oh, I understand, but okay. Just let me know how things go instead of, here, let me fix it for you, or let me make it better for you, and that sort of good stuff. And of course, they have their own way of thinking. So for me, that's frustrating, is sometimes they have a one-track mind where we know what we're doing, we really don't need your help, and you're like,
But you don't.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I mean, I also think that, and most of us parents can agree to this, once a child becomes married, that's another level where I think all of us can agree, maybe they don't need us as much anymore. And that is that not for you guys, was it difficult for you to accept that passing over into a new stage?
Absolutely. I think that's huge.
Yeah,
I think that you nailed it, actually, because it's hard to let go.
absolutely.
It's like all of a sudden they don't need you like they did, or you want to be needed.
Yeah,
That's how I feel.
They still need us. They
They
still
do.
want us around.
that's what
In
I
the
hear.
background.
Yep.
Yes, in the
In
background.
So, and they're looking, to make sure they're not doing anything.
And we're the first ones they call.
Yeah.
I think
They
that's
are.
fair, and
That's-
I also think it's interesting when you look at, it's that's your baby right there, and so sometimes I wonder to myself, okay, not being replaced, but just, well, there's a wife there now, or there's a husband there now, and it's kind of like, yep, that's just the way it's going to be now. So
Yep.
great, I do want to talk about that. We are mothers first, and then we become mother-in-laws, most of us at some point. So do you think there are any real parallels between the mothers and the mother-in-law? In that relationship, can you see parallels at all?
When my son and Ashley got married, even before they got married, I just accept her like she's one of my kids.
Ah, okay.
And she was going through some heart-wrenching stuff with her dad being sick.
Yeah.
And I just tried to be there as much as I could for her and their whole family. But, she could come and vent to me if she needed or whatever.
I get you.
So,
Got it. And for you, Sherry?
I think that's really fair about that. I try to be someone they always know they can come to. I think my son-in-laws have a lot of pride.
Ah, yes.
So they aren't as open to me as my kids are.
Okay.
But I'm there, and they at least know that, and they understand exactly where I stand,
I get
no
you.
matter what.
Interesting. I had a conversation today with my own daughter, and I asked her, I said, talk to me about your mother-in-law to be. The person who will, Janet, of course, will be her mother-in-law. And the interesting statement that she made to me is she feels comfortable enough where she goes to mom first, and then if she needs more, or if she needs another earpiece or somebody that can help her, she feels comfortable going to her future mother-in-law and saying, hey, can I bounce this off of you, or what are you thinking, and that sort of stuff. So I feel like it's very possible that relationship between the mother and the mother-in-law can be strong, because this is a classic example of mother-in-laws all related and getting along very well together. But I do think it was interesting to look at. There's a finite line there, I think, because moms do a lot of the same things that mother-in-laws do, and it's difficult to figure out when to stop and start and all that good stuff. You both have been married before. Of course, Scott, you have in-laws right now.
Yes.
What is your relationship like with them, or with mom?
with my mother-in-law,
Yes.
my father-in-law has passed. So my mother-in-law, we have a really good relationship. I can bounce stuff off of her. I don't take them with my in-laws. I don't take my marital feelings. I don't know how to put it into words, but still my mother-in-law. We're very close,
Okay.
but if I'm having a bad day with my husband, I don't always voice it to her.
Okay, I've got you. So that's a girlfriend thing versus going to the in-law.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you believe there is a place, meaning there's again a line, there's certain things we don't tell our in-laws or don't share with them?
Sometimes.
Okay. And Sherry, do you resonate that thought?
I do, and I also just wanted to jump on that because there's a lot of times mother-in-law doesn't want to hear anything bad about their child.
Oh, yes.
You know,
Right.
I mean, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, who are deceased, I got along great with them, but my husband was stubborn, and they even knew it, but I didn't add on to it.
Sure.
I didn't make it a big issue because, you know, they knew, and I didn't have to explain that. And there are a point where you don't want to let them know. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear if they're bad, even if they're thinking about it. Even if they're thinking it, they don't want to hear that.
I get you. Okay. That brings us to talking about these statistics. So it's startling to me that 80% of the women out there really feel that their relationship with their in-laws is just more troublesome to them than sex or money, because those are two big things in a relationship. What do you think where do you think that comes from? Why do you think there is such tension that exists in a number of relationships between a son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and an in-law? Where does that come from, do you think?
I think sometimes that maybe you or the kids in our position don't feel like they're approved of,
Okay.
maybe. You know, and that they're not good enough for your son or your daughter. I don't have those feelings I'm very, extremely happy with who my sons have chosen to be their spouses.
Okay.
I love them as if I've given them birth to them. You know, I'm not their mother,
Sure.
but you know what? As my husband has told my sons, that when your dad's not there, I can be here.
Gotcha.
You know,
Okay.
I'm not replacing them, but I can be here if you need me.
Do you think it would be fair to say that maybe the males and the females are thinking that, or there's a fear of not measuring up to a mom or a dad?
Yes, that's
Okay, that's what
pretty
you're
much
referring
where
to.
I was going.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So they can't measure up to
not
us.
good enough for,
Okay.
but measuring up would be a better way to say it.
Or I've heard that mother-in-laws can be controlling, father-in-laws can be on an ego kick where they're just the domineering, walk in the room and they control everything, or put the fear of God, obviously, in their son-in-law or daughter-in-law sort of thing. How do you think one can ease the relationship between those two parties, between the in-law and the father, or scratch that, the in-law and the daughter-in-law or son-in-law?
I think just by taking a step back and let them make their way.
And you think you can do that? Like biting of the tongue, or maybe kind of learning boundaries? Because boundaries is a hard thing, and as we age, it's even harder to learn that, because we're kind of at that mentality of, I'm old enough to do what I want.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of it is not necessarily what you say, but how you say it.
Okay.
To your son-in-law or your son or your daughter or your daughter-in-law.
Okay.
When you have daughters, it's so much easier to communicate, and they are like your lifelong best friend.
Yeah.
You are there with them all the time. Now I have a son who I have an amazing daughter-in-law. He adores, and they're so happy, and they have a great life together. However, it's almost the same thing where she experiences that with her mother.
Ah,
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yes.
different.
Yes.
You know, they always say you marry, your daughters get married, you have another son, and when your son gets married, they go to the way with their wife. You know, and
Yes.
that sometimes is a little bit of an ego. I mean, not an ego. I think it's just that where you feel like you've kind of lost something.
yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not
Oh,
saying
yeah.
that should be, and I don't really feel that way because my daughter-in-law has been exceptional and opening and stuff like that. But yet, I can see where my relationships with my daughters and their marriage and their families, I feel guilty because I feel like I'm always there.
I
I'm
get it.
always there all the
Sure.
time where I'm not with my son.
You betcha. I also feel in my relationship, well, like in the case with Brian, I think one of the biggest fears that I have is learning how to not jump to the wrong conclusion. Like if my daughter will call or text at like 1 a.m., I'm like, okay, what happened? What's wrong? I automatically tend to try to jump to, okay, did he do something or did they have an argument? Instead of realizing maybe she's just texting for no reason, like learning to accept him where he is now and knowing that they're on a good track and having faith in that. That takes a little bit of time, I think, and they have to prove that, and you have to see a repeated pattern of that sort of stuff. Or in the case of like my older son and his wife, learning to be able to understand their relationship better, because I feel like sometimes if you don't understand their spouse or that relationship isn't as healthy, it's a struggle because you're like, okay, I'm already not getting along, or we're not getting along in the right place right now. So that can be a strange relationship. So to piggyback on that, I think one of the biggest worries that daughter-in-laws or son-in-laws have is not only, I do think they secretly want our approval to some extent, but more importantly, they want us to be hands-on, but not too hands-on. So learning the boundaries is a huge thing. Now, I want to ask about this. I don't know if you guys know this, but did you know, as a mother-in-law, you technically can be considered immediate family in certain health situations or with family leave policies? Were you aware of that? And is that something that you would entertain doing, or do you think your family would want you to do? Would you be comfortable with that?
I'm sorry, but I just know it
Absolutely.
because I took care of my in-laws. So
Ah.
I was their primary care, and there was another child involved, but
Oh.
didn't want to take on that.
Okay.
So for me, it was definitely a very close relationship where you made decisions and you did it because of you love them. I mean, you
Right.
do it because you care, and they need you.
You betcha.
So
Right. And I'm assuming you did not know that, because I didn't until I
I did
started
not know
researching.
that.
I did not. So I'm like, technically a mother-in-law can do this, but then would you be comfortable being in that capacity? That's a large ask.
it is.
For me, it would depend on if Sherry was involved,
Sure.
and I wouldn't overstep her, or if Ashley, in that case, in just that case, if she wanted me to take on that role, if she asked me, I would definitely. I feel as if she's my daughter too.
You bet. That
You
makes
know.
sense. Sure. Well, the other thing we do want to point out is that obviously mother-in-law or father-in-law does not replace. There's an immediate family, and we all feel like immediate family, but those are large, heavy-duty things. But the option is out there, so good to know, obviously. I want to switch gears to talk about societal messaging, because as I talked about in the introduction, mainstream media and society in general, I think, tends to paint us as either just, we constantly are screaming at you to have babies, we're constantly wanting to be over there 24/7, we always want to be telling you what to do, or having control over our children or grandchildren. So why do you think it is that society pushes such a negative narrative when it comes to in-laws? Why?
I don't have any good answers for that.
That's fair. I've been trying to figure out why mainstream media, why tons of articles are out there, why are you pushing society to believe that we really want our kids to live in fear of us, constantly nagging them about expectations we have, or constantly worrying about, are they taking care of our grandchildren good enough? That has to come from somewhere, right? Or do you feel that mainstream media has a motive for doing that?
I don't know if they have a motive. I just don't think they understand it, or they haven't experienced that relationship. I think we all have to realize that we're all part of the same family.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. For me, for my in-laws, and I'm just going to put this out there, is I never even thought of them as in-laws. I took care of them as my own parents.
Sure.
There wasn't any thought of that. And I don't know if a lot of people don't have that relationship, or they don't want to, or they despise because maybe there are some that are more overpowering.
Yeah.
And that could be very easy. I know I overstep my bounds, but I also then realize it and I step back. So I don't know. I think it just comes from where you're at and how you've accepted and how you've grown with that.
Okay. Now, question, I'm turning gears a second to talk about father-in-laws. Father-in-laws, by and large, sadly, they don't get as much celebration or attention as a mother-in-law does. And that's a statistical fact. They get accused of this meddling as well, just not to the degree that we do. So, as mother-in-laws, would you speak a bit about what you believe the role of a father-in-law is, and how do we get to celebrate them more?
I have to say, my son and my father-in-law, they were best buds.
Oh,
My son and my husband, 3 generations, they made it a point to do their fishing together. They made it a point for him to teach him things. And,
Yeah.
I think it comes down to being very involved
yeah.
with them. I really do. I think that's how it all starts, and that's how it evolves.
Janet, do you think there's a difference between the role of a mother-in-law and a father-in-law?
Not much of one.
No, really.
No.
Because the men tend to have some of the traits we don't. I mean, let's be honest. Not as
Right.
nurturing, and they're more protective in some of the other things. So,
They might not show it as much, but I think behind closed doors, I think they're in the same seat we are.
sure.
No.
That makes sense. I can totally agree with that. I think, in my case, of course, I've only been married once, and I unfortunately never got to meet my in-laws. So I never had that situation. Although I would hope, if I go off and get married, I think in a perfect world, a father-in-law is a combination and part of us, so to speak. The loving, the nurturing, the protective sort of thing. The offering wisdom when we can, but also understanding that we need to have boundaries. But more importantly, recognizing and respecting our role as much as they do their role. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I
I
think
feel-
the father-in-laws might notice where that line is
Oh, yeah.
better than the mother-in-laws.
I think that's very,
absolutely.
very fair. I would have to agree with that. Totally
Yeah.
agree with that.
I agree.
It has been said, a good mother-in-law encompasses the following qualities: encouraging, respectful, not preaching, humble, and offering to help and being an ally. Would you agree with that, and is there anything missing?
Wholeheartedly, I would agree with that.
I would agree also. I think respect is really top up there.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, having said that, and we all know what encompasses being a good mother-in-law, tell me a bit about how do you handle conflict or presumed conflict at some point, because we all can't get along 24/7. So what do you recommend in keeping a healthy relationship? What happens when conflict comes along? How do we deal with that? Or what happens if we disagree wholeheartedly with a choice that a parent makes with their grandchild?
I've been really lucky because when I'm with my grandchildren, I am their authority.
Okay.
I don't go, I always respect their position and what they want for them.
Sure.
And I try to maintain that. I'll keep it the same. I don't try to overstep and say, oh no, we're not doing it that way.
Okay.
So I do respect that, and I think that you just have to. You have to find that common ground and where you are so good with each other and respect their decisions and go with it.
Okay.
However, I've been given that my daughter will never question, I have yelled at my grandson and she didn't like it, but you know what? She knew why,
Sure.
but she didn't like it,
Okay. I see.
But I just feel like, hey, if you want me here, I'm doing what's best for him.
Absolutely. Now, Janet, have you had conflicts of any kind in your relationships?
Not with my daughter-in-laws
Okay.
as of yet, and my son and my daughter-in-law have been together. We figured it out about 10 years.
Okay, gotcha. So there's been
So
no.
I
Okay.
really haven't had much.
Okay.
I know sometimes she might think my ideas are out there or far-fetched, and my son will tell me later, once in a while. Not always.
Sure.
I'm sure he doesn't always tell me. Ashley, you might not have really liked that when you did that. Okay, and I take it and put it in my little file cabinet and,
Sure.
and try to respect that doesn't happen again.
You bet.
You know,
Now, if we were sitting with a group of fellow mother-in-laws and they came to you and they said, we just cannot see eye to eye. We can't get along. We can't seem to repair this relationship. What do they do? What would you recommend?
Well, you either accept it, you lose your daughter, or you lose your son.
Do you think that's possible to lose them through
I
a
do.
marriage?
I do. I've heard of it, and I think some of them are like, I love this man. If you can't accept him, I'm out of here. So you either make that choice to make it work and accept their choice. It's not
that's
about,
the biggest thing.
yeah, it's
It's
not
accepting
your
their
life.
choice.
It's not your decision. You don't get to choose.
Sure.
I mean, we all have an perfect idea of what we want for our kids, but doesn't always mean that we get to pick that.
Oh, you betcha.
Very
Now,
well said, Sherry.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that the mothers on this panel, of course, are like 40 or so. The point being is we're a bit more mature. So if we went back to when you were in your 20s and 30s, would you feel like you would have these same reflections and thoughts about this now? If you had been younger?
I think I would have, because I've always had a good relationship with my in-laws. And I try to, again, you have to remember that it's not necessarily your choices
Yes.
or that you think this person is or isn't good enough. It's, you want your son or daughter to be happy
Yes.
and at the happiest that they can be,
You bet.
and not to settle. And I don't think either one of my sons have settled.
I agree. I can say that I lost my parents very young, so I didn't get to enjoy all the things, and I almost feel like I've not only had a mother and father-in-law, almost a mother and father, because I was very young when I
Sure.
lost them. So I kind of took that on as being, a parent to them. And
Sure.
we spent a lot of our time, we could do anything with our kids. We'd always go over there and just enjoy the time with them. So it was just the way it was.
Oh, you bet. And in my circumstances, just to give some other side, because it sounds so rosy here, when I married my ex-husband, who's a very good friend of mine to this day, the day I married my ex-husband, my father said to me, we can leave right now. He gave me that option. So, believe it or not, there are some parents out there that are like, I just don't know if this is going to work right now. So, you sometimes have to take that for what it's worth and maybe listen. Not that I regret that at all whatsoever, because we have beautiful children because of it. But just remember, there's always two sides of the fence on that. So, to kind of piggyback on what I wanted to say about sometimes maybe when relationships don't go as well as they should. Obviously, Brian and myself have not always had the healthiest relationship. I still struggle even now, because I don't know that he realizes, and maybe yours are the same way. They don't always understand the impact of their actions, meaning if they do something and something happens to them, it affects their partner, and then it affects everyone. So I wish that sometimes he would just make better choices or consider her feelings or our feelings a bit more before making choices, because I think that that's important. Now, to speak on the importance of mother-in-laws, I'm not sure if all of you know this, and I didn't either, but when I was researching, I found out that mother-in-laws are even referenced in the Bible. In fact, in Galatians 6:2, it says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you are fulfilling the law of Christ." So, we are talked about in the Bible. We are talked about, I actually have a quote from a woman who spoke about her mother-in-law using the term, "She is proof that love extends beyond blood." And that pretty much says it all right there. So the two final questions we want to talk about. First of all, Janet, you can certainly speak to this, and I know that I can echo what you're saying. Is I know sometimes in relationships between in-laws, there's a natural need for competitiveness, meaning if you do something, I have to top it or do better, or am I doing enough for you? Speak to that point if you would, and your interactions when it comes to that.
With my cases, because I have two,
Yes.
I don't feel the need to there's no competition.
Right.
Whether if you're doing something for the kids or you're doing something for the kids, you're doing it as a parent and a friend and a loved one.
Right.
And I don't feel the need to compete with that, because you're doing it out of the love for your kids.
Absolutely.
Because not only did I have sons, but now I do have daughters. And that's my feelings towards it, but I don't feel the need, and I wouldn't want you to compete with me.
I mean, I
if I'm
think.
doing something, it is what it is.
Do you think it's fair to say that innately, at some point for a bit, there is some form of, am I doing this as well as she did, or should I have done it like she did because that child appreciates it? You know what I'm saying? Like, inherently, there's that need for it. Like, you have to be on the same level. Not all the time, but once in a while. I mean, don't you think that's almost natural?
I think there is some natural to it.
Okay.
Like if I was spending so much time with my grandkids and the other one wasn't.
Yeah.
I've actually thought, how do they feel?
Right.
And it was just because it's not because I'm trying to be dominant and I'm
Sure.
trying to be, whatever. I'm just more available.
Right.
I don't work, so there's a
Absolutely.
big difference.
You betcha.
Right.
However, I really think that Janet hit it. I've never felt competition with her or my other daughter's mother and stuff like that, because I do it out of love. I bring them stuff, and if I want to get them something, I just get it.
Absolutely.
It's not because I'm worried that she got it more. I didn't.
Oh, you betcha.
Right.
You do.
know?
Yes. And I can see on my side of the fence, I mean, in the beginning, for sure, I wanted to make sure to watch to see what you were offering and how you were and how you treated them, and kind of make sure that it's similar but not identical. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overstepping either, because that's important. Boundaries and learning to respect one another. But I do think there is just that tiny little bit like, boy, she does that really well, or boy, he seems to really like that. So how could I do this so Brian is comfortable? Because he's used to that, because you're his home. You're his first home. And then you end up having a second home, so you always want the second home to be as nice as the first home, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
That's fair.
That's fair.
That
I
is fair.
think.
In our dynamic,
Yeah.
We're very fortunate.
she makes great chicken soup. My kid does nothing but boast about it. I'm not the cook
Yes.
Yeah.
in our dynamic.
Absolutely.
So we're all individuals.
Yes.
And the fact is, I'm not you. You're not me.
Absolutely.
We all give them
And we
our own
compliment each
inputs.
other.
and
Oh,
we
yeah.
compliment
Oh,
each other.
150%.
I think we
Yes.
compliment each
You
other.
got it. So the only other thing that I wanted to bring up, and I've had this comment come to me before, and I'm wondering if you two have, my daughter has come to me and repeatedly been so grateful and thankful for the fact that we get along so well. She embraces and appreciates the fact that we have a good, solid relationship and that we spend time together. So Janet and Sherry, if I were to ask you, what do you think the elements are that are necessary to build a healthy relationship between in-laws? What do you need?
Respect.
Yes,
Communication,
absolutely.
being open and honest is very important. I'm totally open with Janet. I feel so easy with her. It's
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Things are so easy, and we have so much fun, and we get together and we just do it all for the sake of our children. Doesn't matter, son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and we just do it because we love them so much.
And I also think it's important to mention that I think if you can show someone your worst side and your best side, and they're still around, they're not judging you and they're not looking at you differently, I think it's important to show other people, over time of course, because it doesn't happen overnight, show them your naked, vulnerable self, so to speak. Be okay with being vulnerable with your family, even if it's not blood family, so to speak, because you are family. We're all tied together, of course. And I think
Absolutely.
if you see me at my worst and you're like, I'm still okay with her, you've got something. You know what I mean? So it's important to build it on the best and the worst, so to speak. I guess that's my take.
Well, it's just like, you take the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
It is, and that's what makes it so beautiful.
Families
if
are
you're
good,
still-
bad, ugly.
If you're still there, and that means you've got that kind of connection and respect and love, and it's perfect that way.
Oh, you betcha. Or, if you get the pleasure of being, or the honor, I should say, of being called someone's bestie, you've gotten somewhere. So to kind of wrap things up, if someone is watching this today, give them the best bit of advice you've ever been given about dealing with your in-laws.
My bit of advice is to do whatever you can do to keep the peace
Sure.
and to love them as if they were your own.
That's a good point. Sherry?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that being open and honest is really important, and I go back to respect, because
Yes.
respect is just so important. You may not like something, but find a way.
Absolutely.
Find a way to work around it, because in the end, your daughter or your son are the one that's going to be hurt, and I don't want to lose either one of them.
Absolutely, you
Correct.
bet.
So I will do whatever I need to do to make it work.
And I think communication's important. I
Yes.
feel like if you're talking in two separate directions, that can be difficult. Expectation too.
Yes.
What you expect from them and what they expect from you, and give as much as you're getting. I think is another big thing. You know, because if I'm constantly checking in and paying attention and I'm not getting anything back, it becomes somewhat futile after a while. So for me, that's a bit frustrating. And would you speak to all those misnomers? Are we waiting for them to have a baby tomorrow all the time? Are we constantly going to pressure them about having children?
I don't know. I was excited for them to do that, but I don't think I ever pressured them because they're the ones who have to pay for them and have to raise
Oh,
them
yeah,
and have to
absolutely.
sacrifice for
Yes.
them and realize that it's not their life anymore.
Absolutely.
We
That-
get all the fun part now.
We get the fun parts.
That's
you
exactly
know?
right.
I
Yes.
cherish them, but they had to make that decision.
Yeah.
I never ever expected them to. Okay, you need to have a baby. You need to have. I need to be a grandma.
Oh, you betcha.
It just didn't happen that way.
Yeah, it didn't work that way.
And are you anxious for them to have children, would you say? Or do you think you're at a comfortable balance right now where you're okay with that?
It's their timeline, not mine.
Okay.
But coming from a big family, I would love for them, meaning Brian and Sam, to have children soon, only because Ashley and Jay have kids already.
Sure.
And I would love to see the cousin relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have like 60 first cousins, and although we are in a very big range of age differences, I'm very, very close with my cousins that are my age group, I'll say.
Okay.
And I would love to see that for my grandchildren.
Ah, good point there. Absolutely.
But I'm not pressuring them.
yeah,
They'll do it on their
yeah.
timeline.
That's what I say too. I know that my daughter is very excited about having children. She'd probably do it tomorrow, you know, but I think that they need to get on the same path and they've got some things to deal with. There's a house in play, there's a wedding in play here, there's a lot going on.
They have
So,
busy
you know,
lives.
absolutely, without a doubt. So I think collectively as mother-in-laws, what we are saying here is that we need to give as much as possible to them, but yet know our boundaries. We also want to love and love well, but not love too much to the point of suffocation. I also think that respect and communication are important, but most importantly, societal stigmas. Do not let society dictate how you feel about one another in any relationship in your family. You are the ones who dictate and navigate where you're going and where you will go in the future. So just learn to respect one another and hear one another and be kind to one another, right?
Absolutely.
You betcha.
Perfect set.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and please, 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 if anything, please listen to our advice. We come with a great deal of experience.